Welcome to Jump Shots from the Goal Line. I'm your host, Jonathan Dugan, joined as always by Mr. John Henningsen. Henny, welcome back to the video world. How's it going, bud?
Good, man. Hopefully we get a little more used to it this time. I think it's an adjustment personally. I don't know how
Yeah, yeah.
you felt about it, but it's definitely something um, I'm sure all of you can relate out there. No one wants to stare at yourself or I try to just lock eyes with Dugan here, but you're getting the mirror right back at you. So you're learning to play, but yeah, excited to be back. And if the people want to see our, bloated faces, bring it on.
Yeah, dude. Bloated is a for sure thing because this weekend I was drinking a lot more than usual. We had our little pool party that we have every year on Friday. And that was a blast, but it was just like 6 straight hours of drinking. Woke up the next morning, turned around and went golfing. Okay, hold on. Before we get into this, is it I played golf or did I go golfing? Because apparently that's a big freaking thing in the golf world, as I was showing you. What is your verdict on this?
Yeah, I don't have a way to tell you to do this. Now, there's certain things that certain people say that do just sound weird, and you're like, you guys new or whatever. But going
Yeah,
golfing or going to play golf, hey, I golfed this weekend. I feel like
it's
any
okay.
version of this verb is satisfactory to me. I don't.
It's a
There's
safe
no real
space.
way that I'm
Okay.
specifically saying, or if I do, I'm not even aware of it. So that caught me off guard. I kind of just looked at it like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this guy's cooler than me, which as you mentioned, the thing that always will strike you is that the Twitter golf world or the golf community it's a weird group.
It's an interesting place to be at for sure. But I went golfing. I played golf this weekend for 6 straight hours. Did a little best ball scramble, and we tied at 85. Don't know if that's a good scramble score. Um, I don't think it's bad. I think
No, I mean it depends, right? And Star Pass, for those that don't know, though, Star Pass is a very challenging course.
very
So
narrow,
very
not
narrow. It
forgiving
is,
whatsoever.
yeah, the epitome of desert golf. Absolutely
Yes.
beautiful, wildlife, fun and games, but very challenging.
We saw some improvement in the game though this weekend, which was nice. I actually didn't. Most of my shots didn't come off the tee that were my best shots. Actually, I chipped in for a birdie. I putted from like 20 feet for a birdie. The short game is coming, bro, and it's coming strong. Y'all better watch out. All right, that's all I gotta say. But yeah, dude, really unforgiving course. We teed off at 11 in the afternoon. It was 106 degrees. The towel was underneath the hat by about the ninth hole. But
Yep.
the vibes were real. It was great. But just another thing of drinking. We stayed at Star Pass, so continued that party after the fact. Woke up the next day, sat around the pool, did the lazy river, continued drinking. So the whole bloated atmosphere, if you can't see in the face, we're feeling nice today for sure. I was very tired last night. You were very tired last night. So if you guys are listening to the recording a day late, blame alcohol on my part. Henny, what was your weekend like that you were so tired?
Oh no, there's no doubt we're washed. I was in San Diego with some friends, but it was mostly the fellas out there, so it was that. We just, there's nothing healthy that was going on in my body. I mean, it started from shooting oysters to, whatever, but mostly just beers with the boys, moving around, bouncing around. We still did other things, mind you, but it was certainly a part of it. And yeah, man, I'm just exhausted. Like probably the same as you though. The sun and some drinks will take it right out of you. And
Yeah, dude.
um, so yeah, we're getting old, man. At least I am. I'm gonna,
The 30s,
it's just
man.
just you just don't bounce back the same.
The 30s are rough. I told you this time last year, the moment I hit 30, it was like a switch got flipped where it's like, hey, you're washed now. Things are going to hit you much harder. Just this year, I've had a knee injury, a back injury. I can't drink as heavily. Like, dude, the rumors are true, guys. Don't turn 30. Let me tell you.
Yeah. Or just
Um,
retire, hang him up, start drinking sweet tea or whatever your gig is. And,
That's what
and
it
you're
has to
fine.
be, dude.
Plenty of good
Yeah.
sleep and you're fine. But
I
yeah,
uh I I bought a back roller for the first time this week.
congrats. Yeah,
Game
congrats.
changer. Absolute game changer. You roll on the ground a little bit with that thing, the lower back feels just chef's kiss. Game changer completely. I'm getting old. I don't like
It's
it,
just one of those
but
foam rollers.
yeah, dude,
Yeah. Okay.
just sitting there rolling on the ground, bro. Just and hearing
Oh
the
no.
scary thing is you hear the cracks and the pops. That's the scary part. You're just like,
Yeah.
and you're like, dude, what is that?
No, that
So
makes sense. I was in my 30s coaching high school basketball and football and do nothing better than the day after their game so we could all just roll out together. Like I mean,
yeah,
I needed
yeah.
it for different reasons, but I was just like, yeah, man, we're just gonna turn on some music, crank this AC, and roll out some
Just
muscles. Like it's gonna be the best
just
I
guys
feel all
being
week.
dudes,
Yeah,
guys being
yeah.
dudes popping their backs. So yeah, no, it was interesting for sure. Great weekend. What'd you do in San Diego with the boys? Was it like a bachelor party or what was it?
Yeah, pseudo, I guess. Yeah. I mean, like we're doing like that quick wedding, all that stuff, but it was just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, hey, let's just bounce out there real quick. Like we got a place, let's go. We'll kind of call it that or whatever. Um, but really, man, it's like we're just so old. Like, there's a picture of like my buddy setting up his fishing line while the other guy's pumping up his paddle board, while two guys throw football. So it's just definitely just dudes being dudes. And as you move towards 40, you can definitely see that people are like, hey, we can take a break. Like, can I throw and cast a couple and stuff? I'm like, dude, please take your time. Like we all need, some waters in between of any of
Yes,
this. So yeah, it was kind of like
hydrate
that
up.
kind of deal or whatever. And yep, we just kind of ran around, but really just all my buddies from way back when and just kind of hanging out a little bit.
I love it, dude. That's awesome. Well deserved vacation, well deserved bachelor party. I'm excited for you, man. The date is coming up here pretty soon, and you're going to be in the same boat as me. So legally, somebody else's. So
Tethered.
tethered, as they do say, the old ball and chain. You're kind of already in that scenario, just not legal. So it does change.
Yeah, we own a house together. I mean, like that's why I'm just like, well, Mike, let's just do this thing, whatever. But yeah,
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Well, cool. Well, hey, as our listeners know, if you've been listening to us for a while, it's summer, and that means silly season. And in true jump shots from the goal line fashion, we're bringing back a classic. We're gonna do a little draft today in the spirit of obviously we had the NBA draft last week, which we'll hop into in a little bit. But Henny and I have been wanting to do this draft for quite a while. Obviously, we just mentioned that we're getting older, and obviously one of the biggest things from our childhoods is our childhood crushes, right? And there are many, but we both chose three to kind of dive into today. Um, some will be no brainers, like duh, that person is a smoke show. Others, Henny's probably going to make fun of me, and he has made fun of me
we shall see.
since the moment he found out like 3 years ago. So I have my reasonings. He has his reasonings. We'll jump into it. We've all been there. We all have these childhood crushes for better or for worse. So I don't know, man. Do you want me to go first with my numero uno, or do you want to go first?
Yeah, I don't care. You can start it off either way. We're not fighting over anything here, so however you want
Okay.
to go.
Why don't we'll jump in with one that we both agree with. How about that? I'm gonna if you're listening to the podcast, you might want to check out the YouTube of this later. But we're gonna share a little imagery here. The first one up, Henny picked
Pictures
it out.
included, you creeps. Yeah.
Yeah, for your viewing pleasure. The first one Henny picked out, and I completely agree, is Miss Salma Hayek from Fools Rush In. Henny, give us the deep dive on this one, no pun intended.
Yeah, I was like, don't get me in a weird place. But no, this is one that definitely like just as a kid. So really like and so all of mine, just to give a little context, are like something that, to me, it's like that person that you're watching the movie or like maybe you meet them in whatever the case may be, but you sort of have some like sort of in your mind, a connection to them or whatever. But this particular character, like this just made sense to me, right? This is a woman in the desert like where I'm from, right? Like someone that looks
Hmm.
like the girls that I was going to school with, right? This white guy comes out, opens a casino in Las Vegas, blah blah blah. But he's Matthew Perry from Friends, so like there's some crossover there. Like I know I'm watching this movie for Matthew Perry, which is hilarious, right? So it's like you're
At
watching
least
this
you
movie because
thought
you're
you
like,
were.
yeah, you're like Chandler, dude. Chandler's pretty funny. Like I'll watch that. And then lo and behold, like Selma Hayek comes in and sweeps you off your feet. And it starts right here in this river scene, which when you said Selma Hayek river scene, I'm like, well, I'm not going to pretend like I don't know exactly what you're talking about because there's a thing where she's dancing in the kitchen that I very distinctly remember. Um,
Yep.
Nice thing about this one is this one holds up really nice. She is still absolutely stunning. So this
She's
one's
gotten
a
better
win.
with age, dude. Yeah,
She's incredible.
absolutely.
She's incredible. But this was definitely like one of my first times. I don't even know when exactly this came out, but I'll just say that this was a VHS I probably wore out a little more. Uh,
as
you know,
as you got older.
yeah, like that. This one I was like, it's just a good movie, man. Like really defending it as a comedy to people, which it is pretty funny. Which but take it for what you will.
Yeah, in terms of rom-coms, it actually is a very, very good movie. And you mentioned it, right?
Thank you.
We're both from the Southwest. We're both white boys. As you'll see in my list, checks out completely. A white
Yeah.
guy getting together with a Latina. My wife is Latina. And let me tell you, Matthew Perry, not a pretty boy anyway. And to give hope to all of us other white boys that we can pull um, a beautiful Latin woman like Salma Hayek. That's all I needed as a child. All right. And then you throw in that river scene, the dancing, like you mentioned, and the fact that she's only gotten prettier with age. My God, like what a home run pick if there ever was one. Um, Jumping into the next one, it was one of mine. I went ahead and chose Miss Penelope Cruz. Kind of similar to Salma Hayek. I think they kind of look kind of similar. They have those big, beautiful eyes, Latin flair. It does suck that I think she was married to, what's his face? Tom Cruise at one point, right? Was that a thing?
I honestly don't know anything about Penelope. Like I know who she is, but like
Okay.
I don't know a lot about Penelope Cruz, but maybe.
Yeah.
I
I
know
think
Katie
she
Holmes married
was.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I think she was either dating or married to him at one point, but I just remember seeing her in a lot of the same kind of rom-coms and stuff like that growing up. And another woman that's just gotten better with age, just beautiful. That's just when young Dugan knew that the Latino way was the right way for him. And she was definitely somebody I admired from afar as a young lad. So that was my first one for sure. Then moving on to your second pick, we are going to go with, let's see, let me pull it up here. We're going to go with Miss Tyra Banks from the SI Swimsuit Edition 1996. You're very specific in what you wanted. Give it to me, Henny.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think this picture speaks for itself as to what it does to a young man. So I don't think there really needs to be a lot of explanation as to the details of the photo. So this is where video really isn't a really applicable medium for what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
As to like my backstory, I mean, this is probably the first person I ever like. It was like her, Clume, Marissa Miller, maybe Rebecca
Mm-hmm.
Romaine Stamos. Like when Sports Illustrated, this is basically how old I am. Swimsuit issue was still very cool, and so to get the swimsuit issue was exciting. So much so that me and my friend like built a fort in our backyard so we could like put these pictures up like in a fort and just live in some sort
Oh
of
my
creep
God.
dungeon in our backyard. Like that's how weird we were being. Um,
Right, right.
but fast forward in my life into high school where I'm working at a five-star resort in Scottsdale as a pool boy, basically. And I hear that Tyra Banks is in the facility at the resort. I know that she's coming down to the pool, so I intentionally like hover around the lobby again. Very creepy behavior, um, and cut her off, and sort of meet her. And she's like, "Hey, I'm actually like going to the pool. Like, could you help me?" I'm like, "Oh my God, I work at the pool. Isn't that crazy?" So walked her down, got to like walk with her probably, I walked through a resort, like a big resort up on Camelback Mountain, took her all the way down to the pool, laughing at my jokes. I'm like, finger guns in my buddies as I pass them because I've never been cooler in my entire life. She did
Uh,
ultimately kind of connect with her boyfriend, who is basically some sort of copy of Rick Fox. So probably pretty much ruled out my chances at that point. Me and Rick Fox don't have that much in common,
no,
but
he's a little bit taller than
from
you, just a
from a
little
looks
bit.
from a look standpoint, yeah, I think he's taller.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's really it, though.
but yeah, man, this like just this really is just like swimsuit issue, and then Tyra Banks. I felt like you know connected to through my life there. But dude, just yeah, that was it. So just swimsuit issue was it back when, and it's I kind of wish it was still like that. It seems so
Yeah,
innocent,
dude.
really. Like it's creepy what I'm describing, but all things considered, that's relatively innocent. That's not me scouring the internet for weird stuff. It's just a picture of a woman.
No, no. No, and back in our day, that was it, man. The internet wasn't really a thing, so you waited for things like the swimsuit edition. And nowadays, you got Martha Stewart on it. So who's to say it's gotten worse or better? I'm not going to comment, but really solid pick for sure. I will say she's gotten really weird as time has gone on. Very opinionated. America's Next Top Model, I think she heralds. So
Just screaming at people. I think.
yeah, just
I don't. I mean,
screaming
I
at
don't really
people.
know, but I think so.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't do that to you, so all's fair as
No,
ends
super
well,
nice
right?
to
So,
me.
did she
As far as
tip?
I'm concerned, she's laughing at me. Like we got along great.
Yeah, did she tip you though? You did walk her to the pool.
Yeah, I never honestly. I still think about that job, and I'm like, I might be retired already. I think I made more money doing that in high school than I have done anything in my life. Great job. Everybody took care of us there. It might have just also been because we had no money and no responsibilities, so everything went straight to dinners and
Yeah,
dumb stuff. But it sure felt
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What a time to be alive, to be a pool boy in Scottsdale, Arizona, walking Tyra Banks to the pool.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. So
It was a good day.
perfect. My next one, just going along with the Latin flair, Miss Ava Mendez, the Cuban sensation herself, bombshell. This picture is obviously from the other guys, which, good lord, if you haven't seen that movie, hilarious in its own right, but man, was she smoking hot in that movie. I
This whole
remember
bag.
seeing her, and a lot of people, I feel like, were very enamored with who else was really big back then. She was married to Tony Parker. Um,
Ava Longoria.
Ava Longoria, yes. In fact, one of my really good friends, Tyler, he had like an Ava Longoria poster. And I always used to make fun of him, like, dude, you got the wrong Ava up there, bro. It's Ava Mendez. I just thought she was like God's gift to Earth, and I still do. I try to like earn my wife's respect all the time, telling my wife that she looks a lot like Ava Mendez. And honey, you do. If you're watching this, you definitely look like Ava Mendez. But good Lord, Ava Mendez is just a gorgeous work of art. And young Dugan was just fully enthralled and enamored with her, and still is. So if you can't tell, um, big fan of Ava Mendez.
I agree. She's
Um,
I put her 1A over Longoria too. I'm with you. Although she's certainly not easy, she's easy on the eyes too, but I'm with Mendez and uh little little underrated from Stuck on You. A little bit controversial now perhaps, but good big Stuck on You guy.
yeah, well, there you go. And then moving on to your last pick, Miss Alicia Cuthbert. I hope you enjoy this picture I picked because you didn't give me too much, but Alicia Cuthbert, ladies and gentlemen.
Alicia Cuthbert from this actually is probably from that movie, but from The Girl Next Door. This might be from that movie though. I think this is like a hotel scene, but I don't know what it was about her in this movie, but it just gets me. Like there's just something like one. I just think this again. I'll stand by this movie. I'll watch this movie anytime. I genuinely think it's a very good movie. Tim Oliphant in this movie is incredible. That's actually where I really
Mm-hmm.
started to fall in love with Tim Oliphant as well. So I did follow him along with Justified. So um, but yeah, I just think there's something about her in this movie. She also has a nice little cameo there in Old School, obviously as like the high school girl that
Great
he's getting
scene.
yeah, like the boss's daughter. He's like, I appreciate it if you're talking to my guy, but whatever. But anyways, yeah, yeah. So just another one that just I always like pick them in this movie. It's like in this movie, like there are other women that I probably like followed along for years that kind of make
Hmm.
more sense to me, but there's just something about Alicia Cuthbert and The Girl Next Door that, trust me, worth a watch.
Yeah, she is gorgeous. I remember her distinctly from just a lot of those kind of like we did a mid 2000s comedy draft last year, and I think she was in quite a few of those
Yeah.
back in the day, a lot of rom-com stuff like that. And yeah, fantastic pick, really. I mean, you can't go wrong with Alicia Cuthbert. So really
Yeah.
good pick.
Yeah. If you weren't in a comedy, I missed you. Good chance.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Same here, really. You know, all those teen comedy movies back in the day. She was in a lot of them. So my eyes were definitely glued to the TV set whenever she was up there. So, and then my last pick, the who could it be,
This is the one.
right? It is the Dame herself. And if anybody ever watched Malcolm in the Middle, hopefully there are some people out there that felt the same way as me. Hopefully this isn't as weird as Henny thinks it is. But it's Jane Kasmerick. Man, I have been absolutely eviscerated for this take by Henny, by many of our friends. But man, there was something about her back in the day. You know what? And even today, big fan of like older women. I think they are beautiful in their own right. I think there's something to that. Me and Aaron Foster apparently think the same way. But Jane Kasmerick had my heart when I was younger. Absolutely. Watching Malcolm in the Middle. As weird as it is, I will always remember it's like episode 2 or 3 of the first season where she answers the door in nothing but a towel. That got young Dugan's attention. Let me tell you, there's nothing better than Jane Kasmerick. All right. Like she I don't know, man. She has that kind of like Eastern European flair, I guess, maybe, or something along those lines, and just a beautiful woman. So what are your thoughts, Henny? I know you got
So
them.
this absolutely kills me. So I'm just, this is why we did this, guys. Cause so just so we could talk about this. Um, this still just blows my mind. And this is not because, Jane, you're lovely. Um, I have nothing. I mean, older women, sure. I mean, Ava Longoria was clearly much older than your boy Tyler there. Wisteria Lane was full of housewives acting kooky, but I watched a lot of Malcolm in the Middle. I loved Malcolm in the Middle, and like the reason it blows my mind is like this never crossed my mind, like to even remotely like think about in any way sexualizing this woman. Um, we just watch it differently, I guess. I don't, but it's hilarious. It's just yeah, this one just. I mean, and it really just comes out of left field too because your other picks clearly have a pretty distinctible trend, which I know, of course, you were on Selma Hayek as well, and were gracious enough to share.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, this one just really comes out of nowhere for me, and so it's just really hard for me to wrap my head around. Like, so for me, like if I was going,
Yeah.
older women, like Lori McLaughlin from Full House, like that make like Becky, right? Like Aunt Becky, like
Yeah,
that makes
Becky was
sense to me.
beautiful. Yeah.
Like gorgeous, and
But
I
see,
started
Becky,
watching Jenny Garth. Like, there's a bunch of shows where there's people being mom-like figures that I was into that woman. This was not one of them.
here's the thing though. Becky didn't have that lovely Eastern European flair that Jane Kasmerick does. And then also, I think I have a thing for like just strong independent women that run their household. Look at my wife. She's just like that. Runs the household, very independent woman. And there was something about that power that she had, and I was very jealous of Hal. All right, so Jane Kasmerick, if you're watching, you have a fan in Tucson, Arizona. So,
Did you start wearing like
uh,
whitey tidies like your boy there and just being like, because that's all like that's more burned in my brain, the visual of the dad in his whitey tidies than like anything Jane
I
had to
mean,
offer.
sure,
Sadly,
dude, sure, maybe. I guess if that's what you're thinking about, but yeah, that was
just being
that
honest.
that is our childhood crush draft. Hopefully you guys appreciated it. If there are anybody that you think we might have missed, throw it in the comments, whether it's on
Yeah.
YouTube, Twitter, throw it in the review. Hopefully all you Jane Kasmerick stands like myself will give us a 5-star review. I'd appreciate it. Um, but obviously one draft leads to the other. We did have the NBA draft this weekend, Henny. I'm going to share my screen again, so sorry for you audio listeners, but we're going to have the draft results up here. And Henny, with the first overall pick, we obviously had Victor Wembanyama. I think we've known that for quite a while, right? Like that he was going to go number one. 7'5", has a good shot unless you watched the the Spurs like video guy that put out clips of him shooting in a Spurs uniform like a couple days ago, and he bricked like every single shot. I don't know if you saw that, but that was hilarious.
No, that's great.
But 7'5", dominated the French leagues. Not just one of those guys that you're taking traits. He has real production. And obviously joins just a legacy there in San Antonio of awesome big men. What were some of your thoughts, Henning?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just mad San Antonio got another great big. I mean, obviously we don't know that he's great yet, but there's obviously a lot of really promising things. I mean, he's just incredibly, cruelly, insanely long. And so there's no doubt he's going to have an effect on the defensive end. Like, if nothing else, he's going to be a very good defender. And then if any of the other things are even remotely true about what we see in, clips and in scarcity and sort of just, stories from Windhurst or whatever that might look like. I mean, if he has, what do you want to call it, 70% of the ability of KD to just rise up and shoot over people, even if it's just mid-range jumpers or whatever that looks like, this guy's going to be really good.
Yeah, I think the stat that jumped out to me when I was watching the draft was that Rudy Gobert, when he was in the French leagues, had like 100 to 150 less blocks than Wembanyama did last year. And like Rudy Gobert is like the best defensive big man in the NBA. We clown on him a lot, but like the guy is a shot stopper. Like it's incredible.
Right.
And he absolutely dominated his numbers in the French leagues. And I think he has like an 8'1", 8'2", or something like that wingspan. So it's going to be insane. And of course the Spurs get him, right? Like, cause why wouldn't they? They've had like every great French basketball player, whether it's Tony Parker, Boris Diaw. They've had so many great big men, David Robinson, Tim Duncan, and now they just Pop sticks it out and gets a generational big man to build around. I will say, though, that Spurs team has really nothing else but Wembanyama. I could not name probably another player on the Spurs. I don't know if you can.
No, I'm not even going to try. I know them when I see them, but no, like I really don't. Like it was a bad raw. I mean, there's a reason they were the number one. But they've been slowly depleting their roster on years. What feels like intentionally, it feels like they haven't had anything even remotely of a name. I mean, Murray, I guess, was the last guy whose name you at least knew had some brand recognition around DeJounte. But no, they've just been depleting that roster. But at the same time, it feels like, all right, well, you have a big man, who can anchor the middle. Now, if you just add a few players, like I could see them being a solid team and being in the in the picture for one of those playoff spots, now that there's 50.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. I would assume that they're probably back in the lottery next year, but you just never know, right? I mean, like you said, the NBA is weird. They could turn out to be a fine roster down the road. One of the pictures I absolutely loved when we were looking at this, I'm going to share it again right now, but he recently went to a dinner with all the Spurs legends, and like David Robinson right there in the middle. I think he's 7'1", right? He looks like a freaking point guard next to Wembanyama. It's insane.
I've got a white screen, but what I can tell you is that I've seen a bunch of pictures of Wembanyama standing next to other people, and he's dwarfing everybody. Absolutely everybody. The picture of Wembanyama holding a baseball, I'm like, that looks weird. The picture of, people talking about Wembanyama palming a basketball with two fingers. So I assume that's a thumb and pick one that he could just do that with at any given time. But yeah, you're seeing it there in the picture. And like, this is what I mean, every single picture is like this. He's just absolutely, which Calvin Johnson has this effect on me still. When I still see Calvin Johnson next to other big, what I thought were wide receivers, Megatron was a freak. Check that out. But Wembanyama, absolutely everywhere. Everyone he stands next to is a full foot ahead of everybody. Very Yao Ming-esque.
can we talk about Tim Duncan really quick in that picture? The fact that Tim Duncan has just completely embraced who we never thought he was during his NBA years, and now he just
Huge
like,
island vibes there.
yeah, definitely
Just
from
being a
the Virgin
dude.
Islands.
Yeah, just being a dude. Love it.
Got
Actually,
the
that
dreads.
I'd probably root for that version of Tim Duncan.
Oh, dude, if he would have
I mean,
like
with some
actually had the,
personality, you know.
yeah, if he would have had the dreads out and everything back then, and like, oh man, I would have been fine losing to the Spurs. But I mean, he was just like the most crew cut, like Greg Popovich player ever back then.
Yeah.
And then you have obviously Ginobili there. You know, I'll keep my thoughts to myself about
He
Ginobili.
just,
And then
yeah. Yeah, that was, I mean, I look, I probably would have hated that team no matter what. I'm not even going to lie, but that does look like a more relaxed version of Tim Duncan. Like he just looks more
Yes.
approachable.
Yes, absolutely. And then Sean Elliott there, Tucson's finest. So, you know, no, nothing bad to say there. Absolutely. But yeah, the guy's a freak. The guy's super long. The only concern I have with like Wembanyama is he is like 7'5" and like 200 pounds, right? Like he's not a big man. I think you see people like Chet Holmgren, you know, Kristaps Porzingis, these guys that have all the skills in the world. They're really tall, but they just can't stay healthy. I really hope that's not what we see with him. That's the only concern I have with him.
Yeah, really curious to see Chet this year too, by the way, as you mentioned him. Both of those guys are just, you know, really weird body types. I mean, and I just, you know, I feel bad saying weird, but I mean, they're unique. They're obviously super tall, long, apparently tiny waists, whatever that means when you're 7'5". But
right.
yeah, there's just guys that are going to be interesting to see how they hold up. But if you're the Spurs, you got to take them. I mean, it was a no doubt easiest number one pick in some time.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it translates to the NBA. But I don't think it's going to be, you know, I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. I think he's going to be perfectly fine. The next guy that got drafted, number 2 overall, Brandon Miller from Alabama. Obviously, he had the scandal this year with the whole shooting situation. Was he part of it? Was he not? Didn't matter. He was a hell of a ball player in college. Goes number 2 overall to the Hornets. There was a lot of smoke before the draft that Scoot could have gone number 2, which I always thought that was a weird fit anyway with LaMelo Ball there. I think they made the right pick. Brandon Miller, obviously a certifiable bucket getter. Gonna fit really well next.
I was wondering where you're going with that. I was like, what is butter?
To LaMelo. The strangest thing with this pick was that he said he has a vet in LaMelo Ball already, and I'm like, isn't LaMelo Ball still in high school? Like, you know what I mean?
That's not
like,
a vet.
I'm just so old now. I remember seeing LaMelo Ball with braces.
LaMelo Ball is not a vet.
No.
Like what?
And then obviously
in NBA terms, that man has been through no wars. That guy's played like 40 games a season and thrown the ball behind his back around a little bit. But I mean, like, dude, you're not tried and true NBA. Sorry, that's no.
Yeah. And then obviously the whole thing with him saying Paul George is the greatest of all time. That was a take for sure. I think he clarified that later on. He said LeBron's obviously the greatest of all time, but he's not his GOAT. So, I mean, still might be the only person I've ever heard say that Paul George is anything other than Paul George. But, you know, hey, way to stand on your take, Brandon. So,
yeah, I'll forever defend Paul George sneakers. They're great shoes. He does have one of the best. Yeah, one of the best shoes in the game, no doubt about that. I actually love Paul George as a player, but I mean, yeah, just hearing this guy talk is where the character issues come from. If you just, I'm not even, you know, take the incident aside. PG is your GOAT, you know, Ball as your NBA vet. Like, these are very questionable things to be saying early and often. And I really,
have character
I'd
concerns.
be a Scoot guy. Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like, don't pile on. Like, just like everything was fine and quiet, and nobody was asking you about that. They asked you about other things, and you still made the news. Don't do that.
Yeah,
don't do that.
Just keep the mouth shut. All right.
Yeah, just don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But counterpoint, maybe he took all the smoke off the actual smoke by saying weird stuff.
It's true. I didn't hear too much about the incident during the draft, so there is that.
Talking PG instead. Maybe it worked.
Way to go ahead and do, like I like to mention on this podcast, way to do your own grassroots marketing. So you mission accomplished, friend. You mentioned you're a Scoot guy. He went number 3 overall to the Portland Trailblazers, I believe, right?
Yep.
What do you feel about that draft pick? Obviously, that says a lot about Damian Lillard, and like he kind of wanted them to trade the pick. They, in fact, don't trade the pick, and they go out and I don't know. Do you feel like this is his replacement, or do you feel like he can play in that CJ McCollum role, or what are your thoughts on that?
I really don't understand what they're doing or what Dame wants at this point. It's very cloudy. I think though, when you're in the NBA draft, and I mean, for the Blazers' sake, I'm glad they did this. You just take the best dude. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can figure out the fit stuff later. And I do think there's like a time and place at a certain point in the draft, right? As you get in maybe like post 10th pick lottery, just depending on the year in the draft and the depth of whatever. Sure, maybe you can find a 3 and D guy that fits what you're needing. Maybe you need a backup post, whatever that looks like. But I think when you're drafting in that top 3, and in this instance, it was sort of a 3-person top heavy draft, like you absolutely have to take this guy regardless of what Dame's doing. So I
Yep.
feel like they have a potentially better talent than what they got into the number 2 pick. Just like in terms of the upside, I like the thought of it a bit more. But uh, I don't know what it means for Dame. And Dame's been super cryptic, right? Like his messaging out there is maybe something, maybe it's not. I don't really know. And he's not coming out and saying anything one direction or the other, neither are the Blazers. So I don't know what this
Mm-hmm.
means, but I guess until told otherwise, I'll assume they're playing together, and no reason you can't think you could have 2 guards in this league. So
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, man. I think one way or another, I think they made the right pick because he's got a lot of like Russell Westbrook in his game. He's one of those guards
yeah.
that we just keep seeing coming in the league. Very, very athletic, can get to the rim, can dunk it on your head. Probably going to be a good defender, which they were like, I think, the worst defense in the league last year. So that's going to help. And if you do end up having to trade Dame because he forces his way out for the first time in his career, you got already built in a guy that kind of resembles early Dame. Remember when Dame came to the league, he was very athletic, had a good shot, hyper competitive. Scoot's kind of all those things too. So
Yep.
one way or another, I think they set themselves up for, like you said, just the best overall result they could hope for. Because you're either going to have his replacement or somebody that can probably play in that CJ McCollum role. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Dame. There's a lot of smoke again with the Miami Heat. I don't know what that trade looks like because Miami just keeps saying that they don't want to include Tyler Hero, which blows my mind. I had this conversation with one of my friends that I know is a huge um, Miami Heat fan, and I told him like, dude, what? Why would they not want to trade Tyler Hero? They just got to the finals without him, and he couldn't even answer that question for me. So I don't know. What are some of your thoughts about Damian Lillard?
Yeah, I mean, I think you make 2 interesting points there, Dugan. Like one is with the Scoot, kind of comparisons, the guys you laid out, whether it's the John Morants, the Russell Westbrooks, the attackers to the rim. Like I love that for Portland, so you just have to do it. And then whether Dame ends up in, the discussion is like Miami, as you mentioned. Um, Obviously, it's great for Miami. It sounds awesome on paper, right? Like obviously that's exciting, and it's just about whether they can make those pieces work. And it seems like the issue is just that Miami might not have enough to give, which is kind of a weird thing that there was sort of the back and forth with that with like Suns and KD and blah blah. So sort of like what there is to give, and I mean these deals can get done. Um, I would still think it just has to be up to Lillard, right? Like, isn't this just Dame's decision? I feel like it is, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of like I was saying with the Heat not wanting to like trade Tyler Hero, I'm sure if Lillard was like, I want to go to the Heat for sure, like I'm sure their stance would change very quickly. So I don't know. I mean, if the
Yeah.
Heat got Lillard, that would be pretty damn good for them because they got all the way to the finals without him and without Tyler Hero. So that would be pretty nasty, especially in a weak East. So we'll see. Um, Kind of done talking about what if trades, and let's move on to the trades that have already actually happened. So Chris Paul, obviously no longer part of the Suns due to the Bradley Beal trade, but he did find himself getting traded to the Golden State Warriors. On face value, kind of a weird fit, right? Kind of the pick and roll king. Not a huge 3-point shooter as we've seen the last 3 years. And then with them already having Steph Curry, one has to wonder, okay, now does Chris Paul come off the bench? Do they play him in conjunction with Chris or with Steph Curry? Who sits on the bench now? Do they go super small? Does Draymond come back? Because we know that Draymond doesn't like Chris Paul. He's come out and said that in the past. Really, really odd fit. What were some of your thoughts on that trade?
That is one of those things that no matter what was going on all weekend, I think like once every 4 hours, I would just like blink really long and go, so Chris Paul's on the Warriors? Like what is the plan
Mm-hmm.
for this? Like how does this I can't really wrap my look, he's a great player and a really smart guy. So, that he's just a basketball genius, right? Steph's a basketball genius, Draymond is. I think Clay's, obviously been around the game his entire life. So they have a ton of like really smart basketball people. The
Yep.
thing is just, these guys they got older. And like that's the one thing when you start piling up KDs and Chris Pauls and stuff together, it does get scary and you do worry about their health. And so I think that's the Warriors' problem unless they find another way to address it, unless this is a move for another move. But if they're just got older, I don't really like it. I mean, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it. Like, I'm sure a lot of times it's going to look really, really good, but the problem at the end of the day is like, are these guys healthy in the playoffs? And do they have the energy to push a team through? Because that's where I see the problem. Like, I'm sure they can win a lot of games and it'll look really, really nice in the regular season, as we see many teams do. Um, but I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. I really don't get that trade. But the whole basically we could have moved CP for Paul or Poole and getting
Yeah.
Beal for the Suns, you have to be very happy about that, I think. Certainly
Yeah.
Poole's younger, but Poole's a different level of player than Beal, in my opinion.
Yeah. People talk about how bad of a contract Bradley Beal is on because it's, a max and whatever, blah, blah, blah. But like arguably Jordan Poole's contract's worse, right? Like he got really, really paid last year and then was not good at all for the Warriors this year. And now he's off to the Wizards. He's probably going to average 25 points a game because it's a terrible team. But again, not an efficient player, kind of a head case. But I agree with you, man. The Warriors fit for Chris Paul is super, super strange because like that was already like one of the oldest cores in the NBA. Now they're just getting older. Granted, it's on an expiring contract, so that's good for them. But again, does he come off the bench? How's he going to fit with Draymond, who's already like such a doesn't get along with anybody type of guy as it is?
And neither of those
Like
guys want
you,
to shoot, so that pick and roll is very different.
yeah, exactly, right? Like the pick and pop action that you had with the Suns, like that's suddenly weird. Like Draymond is a very good rim roller, like one of the best, but he's like 6'7". It's not like having DeAndre Ayton out there, and as much shit as we talk about DeAndre Ayton, guy is a really good rim runner, right? So
Yeah.
super, super weird fit. It's weird too because the Warriors don't have much room to do anything else, tax wise and stuff like that. And as much shit as the Suns caught for the Bradley Beal trade, seemingly the Warriors are getting no flack for this move. And the Wizards are being like applauded for everything they've done. And if you look at the Wizards, like their team is way worse than it was, which was already bad. And they're taking on bad money with Jordan Poole. I don't know. Like the further away we get from the Bradley Beal trade, the better I feel about it because I feel like we've gotten the best value, especially even when you look at like what the Celtics did, getting Kristaps Porzingis, another trade that happened, having to get rid of Marcus Smart, heart of their team, having to give up a pick, stuff like that. Like just some really, really odd trades happening in the NBA right now.
Yeah, so what's the weirdest one to you? The CP one is the one I can't get past. That's the one, like, I
Yeah,
mean, I can kind of do the mental gymnastics of like, okay, the
yeah,
Celtics needed to make some changes. We've kind of seen this iteration of this roster doesn't totally
they
work.
needed a good big man. Yeah,
The
like
Wizards, if you're like a young team and you plan on losing, Jordan Poole's perfect for that. He'll take 40 shots
yeah,
if you want. You can lose every game. And you can
yep,
draft, and then you have a guy, though, that is there that you can still like try to grow and develop. So, like, a
yep.
lot of these moves, like, I can put those in somewhere in my brain. And the Chris Paul one, like, just, I just can't. And there is like that weird tension too of like Warriors fans never like CP, as you mentioned. Draymond never liked CP. There's
Yep.
definitely clips of CP and Steph taunting each other in playoff games, which I don't think being competitive means they don't like each other. But it is just like such a funny and interesting fit.
I mean, even that clip, the viral clip of Chris Paul like laughing with Steve Kerr and then walking down the court and like giving the nastiest face ever. Like
Yeah,
that kind of stuff has to come up, right?
I
Like, and
know.
granted, they're professionals, and Chris Paul is like the pros pro, so like I'm sure it won't be an issue. But in terms of just like chemistry and like culture fit, like I cannot think of a weirder addition to any roster so far. But the Kristaps trade was weird for me because number one, they gave up a lot for him for a guy that has never been healthy. They had Robert Williams who can't stay healthy either, but like Kristaps is just God, I forgot he was even in the league for most of the year this year, and they just gave up a bag for him. So
He did have a nice year this year, and he was mostly healthy. But I mean, yeah, that's a lot to bank on. I mean, I'm with you. That's not been his mo. And even when he's been in the league and been healthy, he's never been on a good team. Like he's never been
no,
a guy that's a winner. So I mean, which isn't to say that he can't win. I'm not, but it's interesting. There's been some interesting moves for sure. I have to definitely just say that I did, and this is not a good person that I am, but I did just like laugh at the idea of like Draymond punching Poole and then them trading him. Like just the
yeah,
idea of
Draymond
just like,
won. Yeah,
yeah, like Draymond's like, yeah, I punched that guy, and then I asked that we just move him. Yeah,
yeah, and if you think about the optics too, right, and the timing, like Draymond opts out of his contract. Warriors are probably freaking out. They trade Jordan Poole, one of their only young, like somewhat good assets,
yes,
and now they're stuck with a 38-year-old Chris Paul for a year, just twerking, hoping that Draymond Green comes back. Like, I don't know, dude. Like,
yeah,
really weird fit. I guess in terms of what they could do, that was really it, right? And I guess that trade had been given to the Suns too, like Chris Paul for Jordan Poole straight up. So James
yeah.
Jones, you're winning me over little by little. Like I'm glad you didn't go out and get Jordan Poole because I'm not a fan. He's basically J.R. Smith without the awesome shenanigans. So you
Yeah,
know,
he's just like the word. Like, yeah, he's my least favorite version of J.R. Smith. That's a really
yeah,
good way of putting it. Like, and I don't like hate Jordan Poole by any means, but he just he does weird things. He has a weird attitude, and I mean, so much to the point where a teammate punched him, and no one seemed to really rush to his defense any more than they rushed to
no,
Draymond's. So,
yeah.
obviously, with
If
everybody
you
picked on
if
Draymond
you
for not
look
being
at in
professional.
terms of just like weird things that people do, like they both score, J.R. Smith and Jordan Poole. The big difference is Jordan Poole just winks at girls from the sidelines. J.R. Smith gets up in them DMs, you know, and then takes his shirt off and drinks Henny. So like,
That's what I'm
I
saying. It's
mean,
just
who's
the
your
yeah,
choose your hero?
yeah, exactly. I'm like, just hey, you can like whoever you want to like, but this is who we like. Yeah.
Also, J.R. Smith plays golf, so you know what this podcast is
Played
riding
golf.
with.
Yeah, I mean, look, J.R. Smith's checking a lot of boxes for us, to be honest. Probably an unfair comparison for Jordan Poole. We probably need to
Yeah,
go a little further down the ladder, but yeah, man, I was a wild weekend of like it's kind of like nothing happened, but like all those moves are so weird, and it's just like the connectivity of them all, and like the idea
yeah.
of like saying Beal is worth 38-year Chris Paul, which is worth Jordan Poole, is just like a weird thing that's happening. Like these are
Yeah,
all the same contracts and the same values, sort of.
the triangle's weird for sure. And it messed up draft day a little bit too, right? I don't know about you, but like number one, we keep mentioning that we feel old on this episode. I've never felt more old than with this draft because all of a sudden with all the G League teams, the overtime elite,
Yeah,
Europe, like I can't keep up with it all. And I don't know who some of these guys are. Like those two twins. I hate to
I
say it
know.
because I'm a sports podcaster, but I had no idea who they were. I had no clue, but they were both top five picks and like not my NBA.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
you
the thing.
know?
So here's the thing: is like, so I know the names, but that I'm 100% with you. I used to love the NBA draft, and like I wouldn't miss it.
Mhm.
Like I would have been so excited, so locked in. I mean, I still paid attention to it over the weekend, but like literally I mean, pretty much my memory of it is one, two, three. You know who those guys are, and then was it Dick Grady in the suit, right? And like that's kind of
Yeah.
like how I'm remembering. Everything else
Grady
was
Dick.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, like everything else was G League this, G League that, and guys from Europe, and you just, dude, we can't watch. Like, when do you watch that? You can't. It's just so weird
No.
because I used to watch so much college basketball that I had an idea who these guys were coming out,
Same.
good,
Or
bad, or
even the high
indifferent.
school kids. I could keep up with it when it was just like
Yeah,
high school to
too. Same because there
pros.
was recruiting and stuff was involved, and
Yeah.
yeah,
But like with this overtime elite and stuff like that, I didn't even if you asked me today what Overtime Elite was, I couldn't tell you. Like, I have no idea what the difference between that and G League is. Like, don't come to this podcast for that, because I don't know what to tell you. And because of that, like, it's not really televised, anything like that. I don't know who these guys are unless you're just like deep into NBA draft Twitter. Like that, I don't know, dude. I don't know what to tell you. And it sucked too, because then all the trades and everything, like the Suns didn't even, like, most Suns fans didn't even know they had the 52nd pick until they made the pick. Then that was even contested. Like, I don't know, dude. The NBA draft in comparison to the NFL draft is such a nightmare to watch anymore that, like, I hope they do something, because it's, as a fan, it's not fun to watch anymore.
Yeah, it's tough, and there's no way. It's not fun to just sit and get an education for 2.5, 3 hours, right? I
Right.
mean, like you want to learn about guys and whatever, but there's just not. Yeah, you just have nothing to connect them to. I mean,
No.
it's a weird. You're right. I don't really know. The NBA draft's just not fun anymore. It's just probably not going to be, unfortunately. I used to love the NBA draft the same way probably you love the NFL draft, which I guess I
Yep.
probably lean
I
that
did
way
too
now
back
because
in the day.
it's relevant, or just it feels relevant.
Yep. I can tell you this much: it's not as straightforward as our childhood crush dream, our childhood crush draft. So
No, that's so
there's no
simple,
Jane
guys. Three
Kazmarks in
picks.
this draft.
3 picks. Although there is going to be people out there going like, "Who's Jane?" I promise you, you took the European. Like
I
you
took the
took a
Overtime Elite
17-year-old
kid.
from Finland. Yeah, like everybody's like, I don't know, man. I guess she's tall.
That is true. I took and I even kept saying, like, the Eastern European flair. Like,
You
hey, I
did. You
just took
kept.
a
Yeah,
Finnish
you
kid.
kept. Yeah,
I
you
took a
were.
Finnish kid.
Yeah, you did. You just kept going like, "Hey, man, this marketing," and I'm like, but
Yeah, exactly.
someone's going to
Hey,
ask you
well,
about that one. But I applaud you. I applaud you for taking risks.
look, she's a sleeper. Okay, she's a fifth-year senior. It's fine. You know,
And those two
emphasis on the
twins.
senior.
Best twin since like what were those Kentucky twins? I'd say it's go back as far as the Lopez, but it kind of reminds me just hearing about them of those two twins that went to Kentucky that sort of flirted with the NBA for a bit.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. They were okay. So,
Yep.
yeah, man.
Barnes.
Outside of that, pretty pretty slow week in sports. So I think we covered pretty much everything. This weekend, anything happening? Any golf tournaments? Anything like that?
I don't even know if they're off. I know it was the Farmers over the weekend. Keegan Bradley held strong, finished
Yep.
that out. Well, I don't know if he even held strong. He kind of like fell apart, but still won, which is fine. Good
The
for him.
anti Rory.
You figured it out. Hey, yeah, dude. If you figure it out, good for you. Like the win is the win is the win in that sport. And I don't know, like what I mean. Do you want to talk about your slam ball? I mean, I know that's like
Oh,
really in your wheelhouse. I mean, it's not
we
like we can hash out slam ball for a minute.
yeah, I think we should. I mean, it's coming back. Apparently, that was a little too past your time, Henny, which I can't believe, because it was early 2000s. But hey, it's coming back. They got a 2-year contract with ESPN. Slam ball is basically like football and basketball with trampolines. So I thought it would be up your wheelhouse, but apparently you're just a purist in
I just
everything. So
I just never. I remember like watching it and just not thinking like as a highlight sport, cool.
yeah,
Watching it, I was like, this is like kids playing on trampolines. This is kind of the vibe of this. Like you're just watching people. So I just didn't love it that much. However, I will say I did think of slam ball and you when sitting at a random sports bar, whatever it was, and they're watching paddleball, and I'm like, well, I mean, it might as well be slam ball, like whatever, like you know what I mean? I'm like, I can't, I'm
don't
not.
you don't you dare, dude. The
No, I'm
vibes are
telling
so
you, it's better than
different.
paddleball. I mean, I was not enjoying. I was like, oh man, there was paddleball over here, and they were like showing the Broncos depth chart over here, and I was locked into the Broncos depth chart. So that's kind of where I was at from the competition standpoint. And we're in June talking NFL is pretty rough, but uh,
I'm gonna get you to watch slam ball when it comes back on.
hey,
We're gonna root for the same team. All right, we're gonna get some merch.
yeah, that's funny to me. Like the idea of even picking a team in slam ball to me makes me laugh. So. You know what? Yeah.
Listen,
I'll give it. Hey, I'm going to remain open minded. We'll give it a shot.
Listen, if you watch the Big Three or whatever it was, the 3-on-3 tournament that Ice Cube did, I guarantee that you will at least give this a second of your time to
That
watch.
was all, dude. I'm so glad you brought that up because when you initially brought that up, I was gonna say I was like the big three kind of like worked for me a little bit. Like if I'm on a
Yeah.
Saturday morning and I'm like, is that Chauncey out there? Like I'm squinting to
Yeah.
figure out who these guys are. I'm like, oh, that's how that guy aged. Like, oh,
Yeah.
so and so can still jump. Like that kind of had my interest like a little bit. Like I could
Mhm.
watch 20 minutes of that.
Okay. Well, hopefully you can give Slam Ball at least 20 minutes and we'll see what
I'll give it a
happens.
shot. I'm willing to give it a
Okay.
shot. For you, I'll give it a shot.
Perfect. All right, y'all. Well, hey, it's been a hell of an episode. We'll see what happens this weekend. Obviously, I think our NBA free agency, I think it starts like this
I think
weekend or
that's what we'll be talking about. I almost guarantee you
yeah,
we'll be talking about what happens on June 28th,
that and
29th,
Slam Ball.
30th, and July 1st. Like that's
Yeah.
really the news that's coming up. And then we might have to twist your arm on some baseball again. I don't know.
Maybe we'll try to bring on some guests as the weeks come on too. Obviously, maybe bring back Hesse and him having his face 2 inches from the camera. Maybe we'll bring on Benny Crown over. We'll see what happens. But stick with us. Go ahead and click that subscribe button on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple, whatever, however you're listening to this, whether it's through video, through audio. Go ahead and give us a subscribe. Go ahead, give us a follow on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of them. That'll be in the descriptions. And just, leave a 5-star rating if you loved it. And if you have some thoughts, we're open to our DMs. So until then, we'll talk to you later. Henny, you have any other closing thoughts?
Nope. Hit those DMs like J.R. Smith.
That's right. Go get the pipe. We'll talk to you later. Bye.